This is Matthew Meager, otherwise known as MMG, and a lot of people know him for being the creator of the greatest Madden series in the history of YouTube.
Welcome to the Wheel of Mud!
Now, some people also may know that MMG used to play football, and although Matt does actually stand at around 5'9", many people around the entire planet of Earth wonder what MMG's football career would be like if he was actually 6'5", 245 pounds. And today, that's exactly what we're about to find out. And Matt's done with all that kicking pussy shit he used to do. He's gonna be out there teabagging your mom off the field and your team's best cornerback on the field. So let's see how MMG's career turns out as we follow him on his road to glory. Now, coming out of high school, Matt knows exactly what he wants to do: play for a great team and potentially compete for a national championship. But as somebody who was born and raised in Michigan, he pretty much knows exactly where he wants to go. So for MMG's college decision, he decided to sign with Michigan State. And now that MMG is officially a Michigan State Spartan, they're letting him pick a new number because they don't have number 3, and he decides to wear number 1. And now it was not long after before MMG would start getting questioned by the media. And luckily MMG was actually PR trained, so whenever they asked him who would he lean on to help relieve the pressure this year, instead of saying the fan base, coaching staff, or some basic answer like himself, MMG decided to go with your mom.
Oh, no.
Now, believe it or not, MMG had to drop 20 pounds before training camp because the coaches wanted to move him to tight end. So after dropping off a load on his offensive coordinator's daughter, he was now standing at 6'5", 225 pounds. So in the first practice, he was out there going crazy. He was looking real smooth out there, man. He even had one play where he literally teabagged his own teammate. So the coaches felt like they had to list him as at least the second string receiver, but they did let him know that there will be a rotation to start out the year. So all of the receivers in the room were going to get an opportunity to play in the first game, and they'll all be competing to see who will take the number 1 spot over the next few weeks. So heading into his first game of his college football career, MMG was completely locked in, and he was ready to make an impact in his first matchup against Florida Atlantic. Matthew Meager was making his college football debut early on in the first quarter, but the offense was not looking good as they weren't able to complete a pass on their opening drive. It wouldn't be till later on where they brought MMG in on a 3rd and 7, where they would finally get one as Matt makes his first catch of his college football career. But since Matt is a part of the rotation, they take him out of the game, and they don't put him back in until the second quarter down by 7. And it seems like the offense is struggling as they were not able to pick up a first down. But they ended up taking MMG out of the game again, and eventually they would go on to tie this game up, bringing Matt back in the second half, where now he is determined to make a big play. And on the 2nd and 7, he's actually able to get wide open before getting crunched down at the 1-yard line, making a huge play downfield for the Spartans. And although he gets taken out of the game, the team would go on to score some points, now having the lead by the time they put Matt back in, where once again he is getting open. He even turned it upfield on this play and said, "Hey," picking up a big first down for the Spartans. And although MMG comes out the game, it seems like he has already done enough to help his team win this game, as they would close this one out 28-14 in the season opener. This is a great way to start the season, and the coaching staff is very impressed with the entire receiving corps, as everybody was able to get involved, but MMG definitely stood out. They're going to be looking forward to seeing what he can do throughout the rest of the season, especially against some tougher opponents. But one of the things that Matt was looking forward to doing was hanging out with this cute girl that he had met at school. He had made plans to see her eventually, but he was going to have to worry about that later on, because now MMG is heading into his second game of the year, where he and the Michigan State Spartans will be heading on the road, where they will be set to face off against Maryland. Now, once again in this game, they are getting Matt involved early. He ends up helping the team get down towards the goal line, where on this play he was wide open, but the QB throws it late and it gets picked off. And with nobody being able to catch this guy, Maryland's 7-point lead grows to 14. And for whatever reason though, after this, they decide to take MMG out for the entire half. But they bring him back in at the top of the 3rd quarter, and almost immediately he is making a big play. His biggest one of his college career so far, as although he is slow, he brings the team inside the red zone, where once again the coaches decide to rotate him out. But it was all good once the team got the ball back, now down by 10. And it looks like they're set up to score with great field position. And on this play, Matt's out there running one of the crispiest comeback routes you'll ever see, making a reception and picking up another first down for his team. Now they end up taking him out the game again, and the Spartans trade the lead back and forth with Maryland. But they bring Matt back out there on the final drive because he's been making plays all day, and he continues to right here, going out there and snatching this one dude's ankle while he picks up a first down. He made a huge play for his team to get them inside goal-to-goal territory, but the coaches still take him out. And unfortunately, this game would end up going into overtime, where in the second overtime, they finally bring Matt back out there, and on this first play, the quarterback throws a pick, turning the ball over and putting an end to this game, as Michigan State would go on to lose in a close battle 42-35. And this is definitely a game that could have been won if the quarterback didn't throw 3 interceptions. Or maybe if they had MMG out there on the field more, they also could have won, as he and another freshman, Nick Marsh, were the only 2 to go for over 100 yards on the day. But although this was a tough first loss to take, MMG actually got to hang out with that girl Bella. And you know what, boys? She was just so cute that Matt could not stop looking at her. When he looks in her eyes, he truly feels like she's going to be the one. So at this point, guys, MMG is feeling like he's on top of the world. He just got a new girlfriend, he's playing college football, but now he just has to focus on getting his team back on track, as their next game will be at home, and they'll have a chance to come away with a win against one of the worst teams on their schedule, FCS Midwest. Now, for whatever reason, MMG didn't even get the start in this game, which was pretty crazy. They did bring him in the second quarter, though, where he immediately starts making an impact, moving the chains for his team on multiple plays, including one where he took an end around and said, "Excuse me," picking up a big first down on a drive where his team picked up 3 points. Now, although Matt was not getting a lot of playing time in this game, he was still putting up a great performance, as he was out there making plays all over the field, yet the coaches would just keep rotating him out. But by the end of this game, Matt had continued to be one of the key contributors for this offense, and ultimately he did enough to help put an end to this game, as Michigan State would go on to blow out FCS Midwest 31-3. And this was actually a game where the running back would get a lot of credit for scoring 4 touchdowns. Some of those scores being set up by MMG, who once again led the team in receiving yards. But 3 weeks in and still not being the full-time starter really bothered MMG. And honestly, man, Matt felt like it was just time for him to lock in and potentially even end his relationship with Bella, as he just could not handle a relationship right now.
But me and Bella are done.
And you know what, man, this was definitely a good thing, because Matt was back to working hard, and he was going to do everything he could to have his best game in his next one against Boston College. Where on this opening drive, Matt is making an appearance, and he is making his impact felt early on. You see, the defense has done their scouting on Matt, and they know that he's a threat downfield. So throughout this game, they are giving him a lot of cushion, but almost every single time he is making them pay. He catches this ball before running up a little bit and said, "Hey," picking up a big first down for his team at the start of the second quarter. But in a game where he already had 3 receptions, he knew he was not going to stop there. So on the very next play, he is running to the corner and gets wide open, making the reception before scoring his first touchdown of his college football career. 4 games in, he is finally putting up his first points for the team. And it seems like now the coaches want to keep him in the game all the time, because at this point they have him out there on almost every single drive, and he is not making them regret it. Matt was out there balling for his team all throughout this game, but unfortunately it was not leading to any more points. This game would eventually get to the fourth quarter with Michigan State down by 7, and MMG was still out there coming up with some big plays to move the chains. But when the game got to under 2 minutes left and they were still down, Matt knew that he would have to come up with an even bigger play. So on 2nd and 10, he is running downfield knowing that he has to come down with the ball. And after the quarterback decides to throw it up to him, he ends up saying, "Wang!" Oh! Snagging the ball out the sky while putting his nutsack on this dude's back. And from there, he would set his team up with a touchdown that would allow them the chance to tie this game up. And it's crazy to think that in a game where MMG had 15 receptions for 196 yards, that the Spartans would still go on to lose, as this game would actually end 14-13. As it turns out that Michigan State tried to go for the 2-point conversion and failed, resulting in another loss on a season where MMG went absolutely crazy. He even went on to win Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week for the first time in his career, which is probably why going forward the coaches believe that he should now be the full-time starter. All he had to do was just go out there at practice and prove it, and it was safe to say that he definitely did. Matthew Meager was now officially wide receiver 1 for Michigan State, but as great as this was, it was actually even greater when Matt would meet this girl named Elle. And you know what, man, Matt really feels like he has grown from his previous relationship and he's ready to hop back into another one. But not before Matt hops back into another game, where now as the number 1 receiver, his team needs him more than ever. Because although they're at home, they'll be facing off against the number 1 team in the country, the Ohio State Buckeyes. Now early on in this game, as this team's number 1 receiver, Matthew Meager is absolutely frying these boys. They have no answer for him on defense, as Matt is doing a great job reading the zones, bringing us to a 2nd and 2 where once again Matt gets wide open, but this time it's for a score, coming up with a touchdown over the middle that puts his team up by 7 early on in this game. By the time the second quarter rolled around though, Ohio State would take the lead by 3, and it looked like their lead was going to go further after Michigan State continuously gets stopped on 3rd down. By the end of the half though, Matt was out there coming up with some plays to get his team in field goal range and allow them to cut the lead down before the 3rd quarter. Where at the very start of the half, Matt was out there saying, "Wang!" snagging the ball at the air in double coverage, and it was becoming clear that this kid was a monster. But it was not just the fact that he could catch dumb balls, because Matt would get loose too, catching a ball in a post before evading a defender, and there was nobody who was going to catch him for a touchdown, putting up some points that was tying this game up after halftime, and now this crowd is rocking. And it's because they know they might have got a new superstar receiver in MMG. Eventually, though, Ohio State would come back to take the lead, but MMG was out there trying to change that. He helped move the chains on a big third down to keep the drive alive. And on the last play of the third quarter, he goes out and runs another post over the middle, and he is actually able to snag it in the end zone, coming up with his third touchdown of the day. And after this, even Matt can't believe that he's able to do this at the highest level. It is crazy to think that he is doing this against the #1 team in the country. But it doesn't seem so hard to believe after Ohio State takes the lead right back. But with under 2 minutes left in this game, Matt was still out there saying, "Give me that," snagging another ball out the sky and ultimately helping his team get down inside the red zone. Or soon after, on 2nd and 10, the quarterback would find a receiver wide open over the middle for a touchdown, putting up points that was giving the lead to Michigan State in the final moments of the game. And even with Ohio State having all 3 of their timeouts, this score was enough to put this game away, as Michigan State beats the #1 team in the country by 1 point, led by their new superstar receiver Matthew Meager, who went for 15 receptions and 299 yards. This kid was a freshman, and he had just put up one of, if not the greatest performance in Michigan State history, earning himself National Offensive Player of the Week in the process. But as great as this was, Matt also got to hang out with his new girlfriend Elle after the game. And you know what, boys, this time, he truly felt like this one was really the one. I mean, she made him want to be a better person off the field and a better player on it. And although he was just coming off a game where he had almost 300 yards receiving, this team would definitely need him to be a better player going into their next game, as the following week they would now be going on the road, where they would not only be facing off against another Big Ten opponent, but they would once again match up against one of the best teams in the nation, the Oregon Ducks. Early on in this one, Michigan State was down by 7, but the offense was doing a great job moving downfield. It wouldn't be till the end of the first quarter where Matt was making his first catch, and it looked like he was taking it to the end zone for a touchdown. He was putting up a score that was tying this game up before Oregon would immediately take the lead right back. And soon after this, Michigan State offense was just looking completely different. They were out there getting stopped on third down, and the quarterback even went out and threw an interception before half. Now bringing us to a 3rd and 5 in the third quarter where finally this offense is getting things going, as a receiver was able to make a play and get all the way down inside the red zone, where on the very next play, MMG goes out there and routes up his defender and breaks off multiple tacklers for a touchdown, putting up some points that now puts Michigan down by a score in this game and giving them some life going forward. By the fourth quarter, though, Oregon would go back up by 2 scores, making this comeback a little bit more difficult. But Matt knew that if anybody could help his team do it, it would be him, as he was coming up with a play over the middle that was bringing his team within scoring range, leading to one of the very next plays where Matt had routed up his defender and come up with another catch, bringing them to a 1st and goal. And on the very next play at the 2-minute warning, Matt came up with the touchdown, putting up his 3rd score of the game against one of the best teams in the country. And now for a chance to win, all his defense needed to do was just get a stop, which they could not. Which means that Michigan State would fall short against the 2nd best team in the country, just barely losing by a possession 28-20. But MMG does feel good about what he was able to accomplish, as he does almost go for 150 yards. He also scored 3 touchdowns that almost brought his team back in this game, but ultimately he did not get enough help. Now Matt did go on to win another Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week, but honestly, man, after losing another game on the year, Matt realizes that maybe he has to lock back in and really just focus on football. Meaning that maybe it's time for him to end his relationship with his girlfriend, Elle.
That was nothing that Elle did. She's a saint. I have to address all those personal issues in my own brain.
Now, after Matt gets blocked by Elle, he now has every reason to be completely focused on his next game. And he'll definitely need to be, as Michigan's about to go into another Big Ten matchup. As in this one, they will be back at home, where they will be matched up against the Iowa Hawkeyes. Now, I'm not gonna lie, throughout this first quarter, they had MMG locked up in a box.
You stupid.
It wouldn't be till the start of the second quarter where he would finally make his first reception. And soon he would really turn it on, as on the next play, he hits a crazy release off the line of scrimmage. And he's getting right past his defender before snagging his shit out the sky in double coverage. At this point, this is damn near a normal play for MMG. Unfortunately, though, even though it was a great play, this drive would end in 3 points. And soon this offense would start seeing struggles that they hadn't seen much of all season. Whether it be failing third down conversions or the quarterback throwing Stevie Wonders over the middle, it was starting to look real bad for Michigan State. And it would get even worse after MMG was getting strapped up like Brittany Griner on a Tuesday, ultimately leading to Iowa taking a 7-point lead. Now thankfully, Michigan State would finally get down the field and score a touchdown in the final moments of the game, where they actually decided to go for the 2-point conversion and failed. meaning that Michigan State was now losing back-to-back games, dropping this one 10-9, and it turns out to be a game where the guy who covered MMG won player of the game. But this game was definitely not on Matt, as he's not the one throwing the ball. And he also did almost go for another 200-yard performance, so hard to blame him. It was all good though, because the following week they would have a chance to bounce right back, as they were now heading on the road into what could be one of the biggest games of MMG's entire life, where he would have a chance to take down one of, if not his least favorite team, the number 2 ranked Michigan Wolverines. Now early on in the first quarter, this team was just not in sync, and it seemed like it might be more of the same from the last game. Soon though, by the end of the first quarter, it would be very clear that that would not be the case, as MMG was out there snagging his ball at the sky, and although he gets taken out the game after, his team still scores a touchdown, bringing us to a 7-7 game with under 2 minutes left in the half, and Matt was out there trying to do a little bit more than just move the chains for his team. Because on his first down, they throw the ball right up to Matt again, and he says, "Wang," snagging another catch out the air as he makes his way across the goal line for a score, putting up some points in the game that made him feel like he should be competing for a Heisman. Now, unfortunately, this offense would continue to have its struggles, and at some point, Matt was realizing that his quarterback was just not it, as he goes out there and throws an interception late in the fourth quarter, potentially giving Michigan the chance to take the lead, but they don't. Michigan was getting the ball back still up by 3, and on this third down, Matt had picked up a first to help start putting this game away, leading to a first down and goal where the defense had run commit, and MMG was wide open over the top for another touchdown. He just jogs his way across the goal line for another score to put this game away, and if you look closely, he's actually letting this defender know that he will be clapping his mother's cheeks to smithereens tonight, because Michigan State just beat the number 2 team in the country, taking down their biggest rival 24-21. And it was largely due to a big game from Matthew Meager, who had 5 receptions and over 130 yards. This 6'5", now 225-pound man of pure muscle was establishing himself as one of the best receivers in the country. So much so that EA, his favorite company, had actually reached out to him to be on the cover of Madden 26. And it's safe to say that MMG was a big fan.
I love you, EA. You make such a good game. Oh, yes, EA. You're so good.
But now going into the next game, Michigan State is trying to get a little streak going. Sitting at 4-4 in the season, they feel like they can turn their year around. But that all starts now in their next game at home against Indiana. Now, one thing that we had mentioned previously about this season is that MMG's quarterback was trash. The dude had thrown so many picks throughout the season that it was really starting to become a problem. He had lost him multiple games throughout the year, and it looks like he's about to lose him another one as he throws another pick 6 on the season. It wouldn't be till the end of the first half where Matt would finally start picking things up, coming up with a big reception that brings his team down the field, setting him up with a play on the goal line where eventually Matt was able to get himself open and score a touchdown with 11 seconds left to bring his team back in the game. And it seems like this is exactly where that Michigan State team turned things around, because in the second half they got right down the field to score another touchdown, bringing them within 3 points of a tie, ultimately bringing us to 2 minutes left in this game, where on this play Matt breaks past his defender, and he was getting wide open over the top. Nobody was able to catch him as he got over the goal line for a touchdown to give the team a lead, and finally he had done enough to help his team win back-to-back games, as Michigan State would go on to close this one out 21-17, but this would not have been done without a performance from Matthew Meager, who went for 13 receptions and over 200 yards. He had damn near single-handedly helped his team get over 500 on the year, and with 3 games left in the regular season, he was feeling really good about where they were at. But he was feeling even better about the fact that he had just met this girl Bailey, and he thought that she was really nice, bro. He was really looking forward to hanging out with her. But he was going to have to look forward to doing that after his next game, because now MMG was leading the Spartans back on the road, where they would be set to face off against another Big Ten opponent, Illinois. Now early on against one of the worst teams on the Michigan State schedule, the quarterback would go out there and throw a pick. And although it did not go for a pick 6, it did allow Illinois to go up by 7 in this game. Luckily, this would not affect the offense too much throughout the rest of the first quarter, as MMG was out there coming up with some big receptions to move the team downfield. But by the end of the first quarter, some miscommunication between Matt and the quarterback would lead to another pick. And all of a sudden, the momentum in this game had swung completely towards Illinois, as it seems like all throughout this game, this offense had a very hard time getting anything going, as the quarterback has now thrown multiple interceptions down in the red zone, taking off some points from Michigan State after half. Despite all that, though, it didn't really seem to matter, as MMG was coming up with some big plays over the middle, moving his team right back towards scoring range late in the fourth quarter, and eventually even getting them down to the goal line where the quarterback would throw another pick. One that, although did not go for a pick 6, was eventually enough to put this game away, as Michigan State was now taking their worst loss of the season, losing this game 7-0. And honestly, man, it was hard for Matt not to be upset at his quarterback, who threw 4 interceptions. The second time this season that he's done that, by the way. Now, one thing that Matt was trying to do was change up his drip throughout the game, but it seemed like Michigan State was not going to let him. So instead, he decided to spend some time hanging out with his new girlfriend, Bailey. And you know what, guys? I know this sounds crazy, but this time, this feels like the one. Matt just feels something different about this girl, and he can't wait to spend more time with her. But he also can't wait to get back out on the field and into his next game, as he's going to try to help Michigan State get back on track and get a win in their next game. Where at home, they will now set to be face-off against Purdue. Now, coming off a loss where Matthew Meager felt embarrassed, he's going to do his best to embarrass Purdue in this game by saying, hey, and picking up some big first downs. But if you thought he was going to stop there, you must be fried out your mind, because he would also say, skrrr, and route up his defender as he got his way across the goal line for a touchdown, making a play early on that gave his team the lead and a ton of momentum going forward. Because by the second half, MMG was still out there cooking his defenders, and eventually he was able to say, mwang, coming up with a catch that brought him across the goal line for a touchdown. And it turns out this score was already enough to get the Spartans back in the win column, as the Michigan State Spartans would win this game by 1 point, and they were very thankful to have their freshman superstar receiver who went for over 150 yards once again. But at this point in the season, with one game left, Matt knows that his team has no chance of making the college football playoffs. And oftentimes you would wonder what else he could even do, considering he was one of the leading receivers in the entire country. I mean, he had quickly established himself as one of the best receivers in all of college football, let alone within this Michigan State wide receiver room. But now, heading into the final game of the regular season, Michigan State is just looking to finish off the season strong, and hopefully come away with a win as they finish the year at home against Rutgers. Now, unfortunately, throughout this game, although it was another one where MMG was doing his thing, this offense had been doing what they had done all year without him, which was failing to move the ball down the field, ultimately leading to a 10-0 deficit by the third quarter, where MMG felt like he had finally had enough. So on this play, after catching the ball on the slant, he says, hey, and after snatching this one dude's ankle, he is breaking loose. Matthew Meager was outrunning the entire defense all the way to the end zone for a touchdown, getting his team across the goal line for a score that was starting to bring them back in this game after half. But by the time the fourth quarter hit, Rutgers was now up by 10. And now Michigan State was on a drive where, although they were moving the ball downfield, by the time they got down to the goal line, it seems like they had taken so much time off the clock that when they were finally able to get across the goal line for a score, it was already too little too late. And Michigan State would go on to lose their last game of the regular season, closing the season out with a 17-14 loss. And this was yet another game where MMG had another great game, but seemingly just didn't do enough. It was honestly crazy for him to think about the year that he was having individually, yet his team was only 6-6 on the season. And it had bothered him so much that Matt realized that maybe it's time for him to break up with his girlfriend. But he took the time to reassure Bailey that she was not the problem.
It's pretty clear to me what the common denominator is. I know that I'm the problem.
By the end of the season, it turns out that a quarterback out of Alabama wins the Heisman Trophy. And although that was pretty cool, it was very nice to see that Matthew Meager had won some awards, earning himself first team All Big Ten as a freshman. And he definitely earned it in a year where he went for over 100 receptions and 1,800 yards. I mean, this kid was just a freshman, so it was no surprise that he would go on to win a bunch of other freshman awards. But the idea that Matthew Meager had led the entire country in receiving yards and receptions, yet still was on a team that wouldn't even sniff the college football playoffs, well, that really bothered him. But all he could do now was just stay as locked in as he could be going into the last game of the season, where Matthew Meager would be leading Michigan State into the Music City Bowl against the Texas Longhorns. Now, in this game, Matt would not get involved until the end of the first quarter, where he came up with a big reception over the top, helping to bring his team within scoring range. And literally on the very next play, they had MMG out there playing tight end before he would go out and leak out to the corner, and he was over there wide open for a touchdown. Nobody even laid a finger on him on a play where he scored some points to tie this game up at 7. And by the end of the second quarter, Matt would continue to be the guy to make plays for his team, as he came up with a catch on his hitch route that brought his team inside field goal range, allowing them to tie this game up again before Texas would take the lead back. So with Matt still trying to help his team come away with the win in the last game of the season, he was doing whatever he could to get open. And for a while, man, it was definitely working, at least until the quarterback decided to throw a pick. And all of a sudden, the life was sucked out of the Michigan State fans in the stadium. But with under 2 minutes left to go, though, it seemed like it was all good, because MMG was out there saying, "Wang," coming up with some big catches that gave his team some life. They had a chance to go downfield and potentially win this game.
Hell no, man. What the fuck, man?
That shit is a two-pack of ass.
Michigan State would lose their final game of the season 13-10. And after now taking his 7th loss on the season, MMG knew that he was going to have a lot of thinking to do going into the offseason. Because after watching another Big Ten opponent go out there and win a national title, This really just lit a fire under Matthew Meager. So despite the fact that he went for over 2,000 yards receiving, and even came very close to securing the all-time single-season record on a national level, he still knew that he was one of the nation's best receivers as he broke a Big Ten record, solidifying himself as one of, if not the greatest receiver Michigan State has ever seen. But he did all this while playing with one of the worst quarterbacks that he's ever seen in his life. This dude threw more picks than he threw touchdowns. What the fuck? The worst part about it is that he's only a sophomore. So it looks like he's probably going to be the quarterback for the Spartans over the next 2 to 3 years. And honestly, y'all, despite his love for Michigan State, MMG knows that he deserves better. So during the offseason, he has decided to hit the transfer portal. And he wants to play in an offense where everybody is able to do well. Whether it's playing with a quarterback who knows how to actually get him the ball, or playing with another top-tier receiver who can open up the offense for everybody. Either way, MMG had a decision to think about going into the offseason. But I'll leave that decision up to you guys. If you want to see a part 2 of MMG, be sure to get this video to 1,000 likes and subscribe to the channel down below. Also be sure to comment down below what else you guys want to see next, and YouTube thinks you'll like one of the other stories until the next one comes out. If you got to this point in the video, just know that I appreciate you more than you'll ever know. I hope you all have a great rest of your week, and other than that, I'm gonna catch you guys next time.